Oh, there you are, little one. Come in. The fire crackles. The storm rumbles outside. And in the grim darkness of the far future, there is always time for a story. And here I am. Your grandpa Grimdarius has already turned the first page. Ah, little one, do you hear the distant rumble? No, not the beating of your frightened heart, but something deeper, older. It is the thunder of war, or rather, its ghost. But fear not, for war is not coming for you. They are, those whom the Imperium tried to forget, those who marched before the Astartes, those who conquered Terra with blood and steel, only to be betrayed at the moment of their victory. Ah, listen well, for this is the tale of the Thunder Warriors. There were once men who walked like gods among mortals, warriors sculpted in fire and tempered in the fury of battle, larger, stronger, deadlier than any space marine you have ever seen. They were the Emperor's hands, his hammer, his unstoppable wrath. And when they marched, the ground trembled, the thunder before the storm. In ancient times, some called them the Legion of Thunder, others the Regiments of Thunder, and in the oldest High Gothic hymns, they were known as the Legiones Cata Aegis. 20 legions of Titans not born but forged, shaped through forbidden sciences, alchemical augmentation, and somatic sculpting, creations of a power no force on Terra could match. Their sole purpose? To rip away the misery and chaos of the Age of Strife, to crush the techno-barbarian tyrannies, and to unite humanity beneath the Emperor's iron fist. The Emperor did not raise them with discipline and control. He shaped them already hungry for war, already thirsting for blood. They had no future, only a present of conquest and slaughter, for from the very beginning they were meant to burn in a violent, fleeting blaze. But where are they now? What fate befell the first breed of the Emperor's warriors? Ah, the answer is simple, little one. They were erased, annihilated, betrayed by the very one they served with blind loyalty. The Imperial archives claim they all perished in the final glorious battle of the Unification Wars. Their blood soaked the black rock of Mount Ararat, and there, among the ashes of war, the future of the Imperium was forged. A grand tale, worthy of being etched into the annals of history. But the chronicles lie. They were not wiped out by the Emperor's enemies. They did not fall for glory or honor. No, little one. They were eliminated. When they were no longer needed, when the Emperor had secured his victory, the grand architect of mankind discarded them like worn-out tools. Their once indomitable bodies were cut down by the very warriors who would take their place, the Astartes. Was it a fitting end for those who had given everything for a dream that was never theirs? Or the ultimate betrayal? Ah, that depends on who tells the story. But one thing is certain. Their bones lie buried in the dust of history, forgotten, while the Imperium rises upon the ruins of their existence. And yet, if you listen carefully, on the winds of Terra, their name still echoes. For even in death, the thunder never truly fades. Ah, little one, before the thunder roared, there was only chaos. not the chaos of the dark gods. No, no, that would come later. This was the chaos of humanity left to rot in its own madness. It was the age of strife, an era when Terra was nothing more than an endless battlefield. Fallen kingdoms, cities reduced to skeletal husks of iron and dust, techno-barbarians warring over the scraps with their hordes of mutants and raiders, and everywhere, war, ceaseless, unrelenting, hopeless. Humanity had crumbled beneath the weight of its own past. The glories of the age of technology were now nothing more than legend, whispered around the flickering flames of makeshift camps. The empires of old had collapsed, replaced by brutal tyrannies, ruled by despots with iron fists. Some called themselves warlords, others god-kings, others still the saviors of mankind. They all lied, they all drowned in the blood of their own subjects. And yet, from somewhere in the shadows, someone watched, waited, planned. The Emperor. Ah, little one, he was not yet the golden god the Imperium worships today. No, no, in those days he was merely a man who never died, who saw beyond time and space, who had a vision to unify Terra, to sweep away the techno-barbarians, to topple the corrupt empires, to lay the foundation of a dominion destined to conquer the stars. But a dream so grand could not be realized with ordinary men. No, no, the ragged masses of slaves and conscripted soldiers who fought and died in the mud pits would never be enough to win the wars to come. He needed warriors who could shatter kingdoms alone, eradicate dynasties with a single charge, reduce warlords to dust without mercy or hesitation. And so, the Emperor did what no other could. The first experiments began. Oh, little one, if only you could see the hidden laboratories nestled within the Himalazian Mountains. If only you could hear the screams of the first test subjects. The Emperor did not work with mercy. No, no, he crafted weapons, not men. And the Thunder Warriors were his first great creation. They were not the result of a single experiment, nor were they born by chance from the ashes of Old Terra. They were the product of a forgotten dark art, a fusion of forbidden alchemy, genetic sculpting, and muscular augmentation that no mere mortal could ever hope to comprehend. Brute force incarnate, bodies too large to be human, too strong to be stopped. Reinforced bones, muscles like steel cables, hearts that pumped blood like war turbines. They were born as adults, forged in genetic fire, stripped of the weaknesses of flesh. They had but one function, annihilation. And when the first Thunder Warrior stepped from his capsule, thunder roared across Terra for the very first time. The Astartes? Ah, they were chosen from adolescence, shaped from youth, bent, tempered, and molded into obedient instruments of the Imperium. But the Thunder Warriors? No, they had no time to grow. They were forged as adults, taken from the greatest warriors of the tribes that had sworn loyalty to the Emperor, transformed through methods that would have broken any ordinary man. There was no room for training, no slow initiation process that would later define the Astartes. No. These men were reforged, thrown into the furnace of war, ripped from their old existence by the force of science and will. But every weapon has its price. Every creation bears its burden. The Emperor had found the perfect hammer to break the old world, but he did not yet know that one day that hammer would break itself. Ah, little one, imagine a time when the battlefield belonged to giants. Not the Astartes you know today, no. Bigger, deadlier, more primal. Men called them the Thunder Warriors, the Legions of Thunder, the Colossi who marched alongside the Emperor and made Terra tremble beneath their steps. They were 20 legions, each forged and named by the Emperor himself, inevitable little one, that some of them would leave an echo in history, a shadow cast upon the legions that would come after. The Iron Lords, for example, were masters of siegecraft. No fortress could withstand their relentless assault. With patience and unstoppable force, they would grind down even the most impenetrable defenses. They had the patience of the storm and the fury of the lightning. And tell me, little one, what number were they? The fourth. Just like the Iron Warriors who came after them, different name, same specialty, same fate. The Emperor never truly discards a good design. He just refines it. The blood axioms, in turn, embodied the savagery of close combat. They hurled themselves into battle with such brutality that they left behind only ruin and chaos, an unstoppable wave of destruction. Born for the carnage of melee, they were warriors who knew nothing but the kill. And then there were the storm walkers, silent as shadows, yet as devastating as, well, like the crash of thunder, wouldn't you say? They moved unseen, struck without warning, leaving their enemies paralyzed with terror before they even realized death had come for them. Ah, little one, they were weapons of war in their purest form. Nothing that stood between them and victory could survive. Imagine an ordinary man, even a veteran hardened by 1,000 battles, standing before one of them. A single Thunder Warrior's punch could crush iron-plated armor, a single boot could pulp a skull into bloody ruin, a single swing of their blade could cleave a man in half as if he were nothing more than wet parchment. And that was their gift and their curse. Each legion had its own unique specialization, reflecting the legions of the Astartes that would one day follow. This structure allowed the Emperor to harness their abilities to the fullest, ensuring swift and absolute victories in the wars of unification. But alas, despite their terrible power, the Thunder Warriors were unstable creations. Their battle fury was both a blessing and a curse, driving them ever closer to the edge of madness. And so, once their duty was done, they were replaced, cast aside in favor of the Astartes, more stable, more enduring. The end of one era, the beginning of another. Thus, the 20 legions of the Thunder Warriors faded into history, remembered not only for their brutal strength, but also for their tragic fall into oblivion. And yet, their deeds echo through the tales of ancient times, a warning and an inspiration to those who seek to understand the true cost of power. Ah, war was all they ever knew. The Astartes who came after them, refined warriors trained to fight with discipline, to channel their strength with surgical precision. But the Thunder Warriors, they were executioners, not soldiers. They did not fight. No. They destroyed. A Thunder Warrior did not advance in formation. He trampled. He did not follow orders with blind obedience. He obeyed only the call of battle itself. And yet, little one, they had something the Astartes would lose, their humanity. Oh, yes, they were not emotionless machines. They laughed, They cursed. They took joy in slaughter, yes, but also in camaraderie, in honor, even in a twisted brotherhood. They were not brainwashed like the Astartes, not forged with cold, calculating logic. They were men, but men made too powerful and too unstable, and that made them dangerous. The Emperor had created them to win the Unification Wars, but he had never intended them to last. Their power was their downfall. Their bodies, designed for war alone, would break down at an unnatural rate. Their minds, so overloaded with violence, would fracture into madness. They were a perfect weapon, but one that could not be controlled. And the Emperor knew that once Terra was conquered, the time of the Thunder Warriors would come to an end. But they did not yet know it. Ah, little one, if there is one story that the shadows of time have tried to bury, it is the massacre of Mount Ararat. The official end of the Thunder Warriors, the swan song of those beings forged for war, the battle that cast them into legend, or rather, into a lie. Picture the scene. Battle rages. The sky burns red under the smoke of war machines. The screams of the dying merge with the thunder of heavy weapons. The last remnants of Terra's kingdoms kneel before the Emperor's will, falling one by one like sandcastles swept away by the tide, and at the heart of it all they stand, the Thunder Warriors, stronger, fiercer, deadlier than any warrior conceived before. They were the architects of victory, the hammer of conquest, and yet on that day they were also the condemned. Mount Ararat, the final battle of the Unification Wars, should have been their triumph. Instead, it became their grave. The Imperial chroniclers, with their solemn voices and gilded scrolls, tell of how the Thunder Warriors fell in battle, crashing against the last defenders with the fury of a storm. They say that the greatest of them all, Tyrannus, the lightning bearer, raised the banner of unity one last time, blood dripping from his shattered armor before collapsing among his brothers. Ah, but little one, the truth is something else entirely. It was not the Emperor's enemies who slaughtered the Thunder Warriors. No. It was not the last techno-barbarian warlords, nor some ancient mutant horde. It was the Emperor himself who gave the order. The fate of his champions was sealed long before the battle had even begun. They could not be allowed to survive. Do you understand? They were unstable, ferocious, uncontrollable beyond the battlefield. They were not the perfect warriors the Emperor envisioned for his great crusade among the stars. They were a weapon, forged only for the conquest of Terra, nothing more. And once Terra was unified, their existence became a liability. Some of them realized what was coming. Some tried to flee. Others fought back, resisting their inevitable fate. But they were already doomed. The Custodes, the golden hand of the Emperor, were the ones to carry out the task. That night, among the smoldering ruins of battle, they unleashed the true slaughter. The Thunder Warriors, already exhausted, already weakened by their own unstable genetics, were cut down one by one, betrayed by the very one they had shed blood for. They say the last of them fought to their final breath. They say that even as they fell, they dragged the Custodes down with them. But fate was unyielding, and the blood of giants flowed upon the black stones of Mount Ararat. But do not fear, little one, for the Emperor's throne was not left empty of warriors. No, their replacement was already prepared. There, upon the still warm bones of the Thunder Warriors, the new champions were raised, the legions Astartes, more refined, more controllable, more enduring, less brutal, at least in theory. And so, blood became history, and truth was buried beneath millennia of lies. To the mortals of the Imperium, all that remained was the myth of a glorious battle, of a heroic death. But in the catacombs of Terra, in the shadowed alleys of forgotten cities, there were still those who whispered the truth, the survivors. Their bodies decayed, their voices broken, but their hatred, that never faded. Little one, if you thought the story of the Thunder Warriors ended in the ashes of Mount Ararat, then you do not truly know the Imperium. Nothing ever truly dies in the shadow of the Golden Throne, and nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Not all of the Thunder Warriors perished in the massacre. Some, too few, far too few, escaped the Emperor's scythe. Not by grace, no, but by sheer instinct for survival. They were men forged for war, born to fight until the bitter end, and yet they were condemned to a life that no longer belonged to them. The name of Tyrannus, the hero who, according to the sacred annals of the Imperium, perished gloriously at Mount Ararat. But, little one, history is made of well-told lies. The lightning bearer, the butcher of Scandia, the throne slayer, his names still echo in the forgotten corridors of history, whispered by those who dare to remember. Tyrannus was not just a thunder warrior, no, little one. He was the storm made flesh, the champion who led from the front, the warrior before whom even the Astartes should have bowed their heads. The Imperial records claim he fell at the Battle of Mount Ararat, the final glorious offensive of the Unification Wars. They say that, with his body torn by wounds, he was the one to raise the Emperor's banner over the ruins of the kingdom of Urartu, sealing Terra's fate. A scene worthy of myth, a story carved into the marble of the Imperium, but the truth, little one, is something else entirely. Tyrannus did not die. No. He was among the few who saw the betrayal coming before the blade fell. He saw the truth with clear eyes. The Thunder Warriors were never meant to have a future. They were weapons, tools meant to be discarded. The Emperor, in his infinite wisdom, did not simply want their victory. He wanted their extinction. Perhaps he was the only one not blinded by glory and battle fury. Perhaps he was just damn lucky. But somehow, he dragged himself away from the massacre. And from that day on, he wandered. Oh, not as a hero, no. There were no statues for survivors, no triumphant marches. Only the gutters of Terra, the forgotten cities, the underhives where the Emperor's dream had never reached. And so, while his brothers fell in a lake of blood, Tyrannus vanished. Not out of fear, no, but because he knew his task was not yet finished. Hidden in the depths of Terra, he became something else, a shadow, an outcast, a crime lord known as Babu Dakal, the omnipotent specter of the petitioner city underworld. But he was no ordinary criminal, no. He had a purpose, a mission beyond mere survival. In the solitude of his stolen years, he learned the secrets of Imperial genetics, desperately trying to halt the decay of his own body. He sought a cure for the curse written into his very blood. He failed, Not even the great Aric Tyrannus could escape the doom of his kind. And yet, even as time devoured him, his name did not fade. No, no, little one, because when the galaxy was shattered by Horus's betrayal, when the Imperium trembled beneath the weight of its own arrogance, the lightning bearer returned. But that is another story. There was no place for the Thunder Warriors in the Emperor's new order. To the Imperium they did not exist. And so they hid, they covered their scars, they haunted the underhives like ghosts. And what remains for a warrior who can no longer fight for an army? Ah, little one, only the circus of death. Many of the survivors found their final home in the gladiator pits, underground arenas where the desperate slaughtered each other for the entertainment of the lords of misery. Even as they deteriorated, even as their bodies crumbled under the weight of genetic failure, they were still monsters in battle. A Thunder Warrior, even at the brink of death, was still stronger, faster, more brutal than any human or Astartes. And so, fighting night after night, gambling their lives like butchered animals, some survived for years. But their survival was without honor. To them, every day was an insult, every breath an affront. Ah, but time is the true enemy, little one, not iron, not fire, time. The fate of the Thunder Warriors was not merely to be hunted, no. It was written into their very blood. The Emperor never designed them to endure. They were tools, single-use weapons, and their very bodies bore the mark of their obsolescence. They deteriorated. They went mad. Their flesh failed. Their bones cracked beneath the weight of their own augmentation. Some simply stopped, like broken machines. Others lost their sanity, trapped in the phantoms of past battles, unable to distinguish reality from hallucination. And the pain, the pain, constant burning, as if their very bodies rebelled against their existence. Many gave up. Some threw themselves into Terra's refuse pits, hoping to disappear. Others sought cures, remedies, even forbidden surgeries to prolong their lives. But none ever truly escaped the Emperor's curse. But tell me, little one, how do you fight an omnipotent enemy? How do you overthrow the God-King of 1 billion souls? The answer is simple. You do not. The Imperium is a beast of flesh and steel, and a handful of warriors, no matter how powerful, could never bring it down. Ah, little one, and so ends the story of the Thunder Warriors, born for glory, fallen into dust, created for war, betrayed by peace. Listen well, for this is the bitterest part of the tale, the hardest to accept. Because you see, the Thunder Warriors were never celebrated as heroes, nor cursed as monsters. No, they were forgotten, swept away like dust in the wind, erased from history with the ruthless precision of those who wish to hide a mistake too great to admit. But what were they, truly? That is the question that burns, the one that no Imperial chronicler dares to ink upon parchment. They were warriors, yes. They were titans of battle, unmatched in their time. But more than anything, they were tools, forces of nature crafted for a single purpose, to win. And when their task was complete, they were discarded. Little one, the Emperor is a genius, a visionary, but also a being cold, calculating, ruthless in his pursuit of perfection. And the Thunder Warriors? No, they were not perfect. They were too powerful, too savage, too human. Oh, but not like us. No. We are weak, fragile, born to kneel. But the Thunder Warriors, they lived for war. They fed upon the chaos of battle. There was no diplomacy in their hearts, no aspiration for imperial grandeur. They fought and killed because it was their nature. And when the war was over, what would become of them? What would these giants, these titans, genetically forged for a world that no longer wanted them, do next? The Emperor knew the answer, and the Emperor could not allow it. And so, the Astartes were born, the better sons, the next step. The favored children of the Imperium, shaped to be disciplined, devoted, eternally loyal to the greatness of their father. Were they weaker? Yes. Less brutal? Without question. But they were controllable. And that, little one, is worth more than strength, more than ferocity, more than anything else. The Thunder Warriors could not be controlled. They would not be controlled. And so, they had to disappear. No, little one. The failure was not in creating the Thunder Warriors. The failure was in destroying them. Because hidden in their extinction was a terrible truth. Even his new sons, the Astartes, would fail him. Even they, in time, would betray him. The Thunder Warriors were uncontrollable, yes, but at least they were honest in their brutality. The Astartes? Little one. One day, they would tear the Imperium apart with blood and iron. They would defy their creator. They would drag the Imperium to the very brink of annihilation. Perhaps, if the Thunder Warriors had survived, history would have been different. Perhaps there would have been no Horus, no shattered legions, no divided humanity. Perhaps, little one, the Imperium would have been truly strong, but it did not happen. And today, today, no one remembers them. No fresco in the imperial temples tells of their battles. No statue commemorates their sacrifice. The imperial histories speak of them only as a distant echo, a forgotten legend. But I tell you, little one, the spirits of the Thunder Warriors still walk among the ruins of Terra, in the darkened tunnels, in the forgotten cities, not in body, but in the stories whispered, in the truths unspoken. Because even though the Imperium tried to erase them, truth is more stubborn than lies. Born as gods, killed as outcasts. In the end, they were not the true failures. It was the Imperium itself. Little one, do you wish to know what made the Thunder Warriors the most terrifying monsters ever forged by the Emperor? Not mere soldiers, no, but titans of flesh and steel, creatures born for war and nothing but war. Now we do not speak of heroes nor of martyrs. Now we speak of engines of slaughter, of warriors too powerful for the world that created them. Warriors who, like lightning splitting the sky, burned in a moment of absolute glory before being consumed in the shadows of the rising Imperium. Imagine an Astartes, little one, over 2.5 meters tall, clad in ceramite, with inhuman reflexes and the strength to tear a man in two as if he were paper. Now, forget him. Because next to a Thunder Warrior, even a Space Marine seemed small. The Thunder Warriors were not refined nor designed for longevity or genetic efficiency. They were monsters of war, giants with skin stretched over muscles sculpted like slabs of steel. Their chests were roaring forges, their arms were battering rams of flesh, their bones thicker than an Astartes, as hard as iron tempered in the fire of war. There was no need for strategy or precision. When a thunder warrior charged, nothing remained standing. A space marine can lift a man with one hand. A thunder warrior lifts you, slams you into the ground, and then stomps on you so hard that your bones turn to dust. It is said that even in their decline, with bodies deteriorating from genetic instability, a thunder warrior could still crush an Astartes skull with a single headbutt. With a single swipe, these colossi could hurl a power-armored warrior into a wall and watch him bounce like a broken puppet. Some stories tell of thunder warriors who, with a single kick, could shatter the abdomen of a fully armored man as if it were rancid butter. And it was true, little one, because their legs carried the power of siege rams. If one of them struck you, your body ceased to be a body. It became a red smear on the ground. You would expect creatures so massive to be slow, lumbering, and yet, no. The Thunder Warriors moved with the speed of a storm. They ran faster than any human could dream, and even faster than many space marines. They were unstoppable, their hearts pumping blood in monstrous amounts, their lungs expanding like war bellows. Even when pierced by blades or bullets, they kept moving. And Astartes, when gravely wounded, has emergency protocols, endorphins released by the body to maintain focus. A Thunder Warrior, he did not need such things because they never stopped. Ever. There is a story, a legend. It is said that in one final desperate battle, 2 Thunder Warriors faced an entire squad of Astartes, unarmored and unarmed. For nearly an hour they tore them apart with their bare hands. One of them was hit by a plasma shot to the chest, but instead of falling, he lifted the Astartes who shot him and slammed him into the ground until his armor shattered. The Thunder Warriors did not know fear, little one. They did not understand pain. They could not afford to. When their bodies were wounded, they did not slow down. When a blade cut them open, they did not stop. And this was what made them terrifying, because they did not fight with discipline or strategy. They fought because it was all they knew how to do. Another oddity of these titans was their strange resistance to sorcery. Ah, little one, imagine a powerful psyker, capable of incinerating a squad of space marines with his mind alone. Now imagine a Thunder Warrior, who merely stares at him and keeps marching forward, even as the psyker's mental assault tears at his brain. The Thunder Warriors did not fall to the powers of the warp. Their minds, built to survive the madness of the Age of Strife, seemed to reject sorcery itself. No one knows why. But every time a psychic wave struck them, the result was always the same. The psyker screamed, clutched his head, and then died in unspeakable agony. Why? No one knows for certain. But perhaps the Emperor built them this way because he knew what they would one day face. And here we are, little one, at fate's cruelest joke. Because the Thunder Warriors were perfect, but only for a moment. Their bodies, their power, their glory, all came at a price. Their cells rebelled against their own existence. Their organs, pushed beyond all limits, began to collapse. Some went mad, slaughtering their own brothers in the fury of degeneration. Others simply fell to the ground, dead without a single wound, their hearts exploding under the weight of an imperfect creation. It was all planned. The Emperor never intended for the Thunder Warriors to exist for too long. He only needed them for one purpose, to win the war for Terra. And when the war was over, the thunder was silenced. But their blood? Ah, little one, their blood never truly dried, and so ends the tale of the most brutal creation ever conceived by the Emperor. Perfect machines, too perfect for the world they conquered, and when their task was done, the Emperor discarded them. Ah, little one, I have told you what a Thunder Warrior was, of the flesh, the bone, and the fury that drove them into battle. But a warrior, no matter how powerful, is nothing without his weapons. And the Thunder Warriors? They did not wield mere weapons. They wielded instruments of destruction so crude, so brutal, that even the Astartes would have found them excessive. Their armor was not mere protection, no. It was a walking tomb, forged to turn these giants into living storms. So listen well, little one, for today I shall tell you of the arsenal of a race condemned to oblivion. Have you ever heard the sound of approaching thunder, little one? A distant rumble, growing louder and louder until the very sky splits apart? That is how a Thunder Warrior sounded when they marched into battle. Their armor, the Mark I Thunder armor, was no technological marvel like those that came after. No, it was brutal, heavy, massive, a block of steel and ceramite chained to the warrior who wore it. It had none of the refined servo motors that would later make the Astartes more agile. It had no flexibility, no adaptability. It was a walking tank, designed to crush, destroy, advance, and never stop. And yet, for all its power, it was a relic doomed from the start. This armor was never designed for war among the stars, no. It had no atmospheric seals. It could not survive the void. It had none of the advanced life support systems of later armors. And then there was the weight. Ah, little one, the weight. A Thunder Warrior was already a colossus, but in his armor he became a titan of steel, a monster whose steps cracked the very ground beneath him. But this power came at a price. The armor was not made to protect the warrior. No. It was made to destroy the enemy before the Thunder Warrior fell. If a shot punctured it, well, little one, there were no emergency protocols, no medical servitors, only certain glorious death. Now let us speak of their weapons, because the Thunder Warriors did not fight with grace. They fought with raw, brutal devastation. Their first weapons were crude lass rifles, powerful but primitive, capable of ripping through flesh with a single shot. But that was not enough. No, not enough for creatures like them. So the Emperor gave them something more fitting. Massive bolters, larger, heavier, more destructive than those later given to the Astartes. Imagine, little one, a weapon so massive that a normal man could not even lift it, let alone fire it with accuracy. And yet, to a Thunder Warrior, it was an extension of his very body. And then there were the blades. Not carefully honed swords, not finely balanced gladi like those of the Astartes, but crude slabs of metal, sharpened like butcher's cleavers, crafted only to hack through bone and tear bodies apart. It is said that a Thunder Warrior, with a single swing, could cleave a man in two from shoulder to hip, effortlessly. They were brutal, They were unstoppable, and nothing could stand against their fury. If they were so powerful, why did the Imperium abandon their technology? Ah, little one, that is the right question. Their armor, too rigid, too primitive for war among the stars. Their weapons, too large, too impractical for a disciplined army. Their very style of war, incompatible with the Emperor's grand vision. The Thunder Warriors were a hammer hurled with blind fury, incapable of adapting, incapable of seeing beyond slaughter. The Astartes, however, they were built for conquest, for strategy, for eternal war. And so everything that belonged to the Thunder Warriors was forgotten, swept away like they were. Imagine the battlefield, little one. Imagine the sound. Not the silent whispers of the approaching Astartes legions. No. When a unit of Thunder Warriors marched, there was no way not to hear them coming. Their armor groaned and screeched like a boulder tumbling down a mountainside. Their steps made the ground tremble. Their breath, amplified by their primitive armor, rumbled like the dying gasp of a god. No stealth, no subtlety, only the promise of death, marching inexorably forward. And here, little one, we come to the greatest difference between them and the warriors who came after. The Astartes were built to survive. They have emergency protocols, self-repairing armor, genetic enhancements that allow them to fight for centuries. The Thunder Warriors? No. Their equipment was not designed to endure. It was designed to kill everything around them before they themselves died. There were no reclusium to repair their armor. There were no apothecarian to mend their wounds. If they fell, no one raised them back up, because they were made to burn fast and be consumed even faster. And so, little one, like everything else about them, even their arsenal was buried beneath the ashes of history. And so ends the tale of the arsenal of a forgotten breed. Weapons too powerful for the Imperium, armor too rigid to survive, instruments of war built not for the future, but only for the present. And now, all that remains of them are ashes, dust, and the distant rumble of thunder that no one hears anymore. But always remember, little one, no thunder fades forever. History has a cruel way of forgetting its champions, of burying the greatest warriors beneath the dust of time. But today, we shall remember them. Not only Tyrannus, the lightning bearer, no. He was not the only giant who marched beneath the storm of unification. There were others, brothers, executioners, outcasts, visionaries, and all of them without exception were condemned to oblivion. Now, little one, listen to their names, for these are the last echoes of a storm that was never meant to end. Gota, the hammer of darkness. Gota, loyal to the bitter end, even after the world turned its back on him. If Tyrannus was the mind of the survivors, Gota was the arm, the silent shadow that broke bones and sowed terror. During the Unification Wars, his thunderhammer crushed hundreds of techno-barbarians, shattered warlords who dared challenge the Emperor. They say that with a single swing, he could obliterate the skull of a power-armored warrior, that his very breath was a promise of death. Not a refined strategist, no, but a hurricane of destruction, leaving only corpses in his wake. And yet, little one, His story did not end on a battlefield. No, no. He survived the massacre. He stood by Tyrannus, loyal as a hound, even as their very bodies crumbled beneath the weight of unstable genetics. Deep in the petitioner's city, he became the right hand of the most feared crime lord on Terra, enforcing his master's will with the same brutality that once brought unity to humanity. But Gota was no fool. No, no. He knew his time was slipping away, that his brothers were falling apart one heartbeat at a time. Yet he kept fighting, kept demanding respect, until even he, like all the others, vanished into the shadows of a world that no longer needed him. Ushotan, the betrayed warlord. Ushotan, a legend among his brothers, the only one who could truly be called a general without it ringing hollow. He was not just a fighter, no, no. He was a commander, the Primarch of the 4th Legion, the Iron Lords, the masters of siege warfare, those who crushed the most impregnable fortresses without hesitation. And he was no mere beast of war. He understood battle, he lived strategy, and even the Astartes begrudgingly respected him. But little one, his end was bitter. He survived the massacre at Mount Ararat, yes, but only to stagger into a world that no longer had a place for him. He wandered the shadows with the few survivors of his legion, searching for meaning in a life that had been stolen from him. And when the opportunity came, he took it with both hands. The Uwoma Kandawire uprising, the Imperial palace coup. It was there that Ushotan stepped forward to claim his destiny. He did not seek revenge, no, no. He sought a worthy end, one last battle, one final cry of glory before his own flesh betrayed him. And so, little one, in that final hour, Ushotan faced Constantine Valdor, the greatest custodian to ever live. Two champions of humanity, forged for war, clashed in a duel so fierce that the ground beneath the Imperial palace trembled. And for a moment, a brief and glorious moment, it seemed that Ushotan might win, but fate was already written. Valdor struck him down with the precision of a razor-sharp blade, and as the blood of the Iron Lord's Primarch stained the stone, his last thought was not anger, not hatred, it was pity. Pity for Valdor, for his existence without passion, for his life that had never truly been lived. Because in the end, a Thunder Warrior had lived. Even if only for a short time, he had truly lived, and that little one was something that not even the Emperor could erase. Dachen Heruk, the timeless gladiator. Little one, do you think war ends when soldiers lay down their arms? No, no. Some fight until their last breath. Some know nothing else. Dachen Heruk was one of them, a veteran of the bloodiest wars of unification, Arat, High Brazil, Albia. He was always there, always on the front lines, always ready to spill blood for the Emperor. But his war did not end with Mount Ararat. No, no, little one. His war continued for centuries. When the world forgot the Thunder Warriors, he found a new battlefield, the gladiator pits beneath the Imperial palace. There, among assassins and mutants, among outcasts and the desperate, he kept fighting, every night, every day, because a Thunder Warrior never surrenders. But little one, the curse does not end with the flesh. Herrick's mind began to break. Too many memories, too many days living in the stench of blood and dust. He saw battles everywhere, relived the past as if it were the present, and in the end, war found him once again. When the betrayal of the Horus heresy fell upon Terra, when the traitors of the Alpha Legion sought to corrupt the very heart of the Imperium, Darren Herrick was there. He saw a possessed legionary conducting a ritual deep within the palace catacombs, and he did not hesitate. With his last shred of sanity, he threw himself at the enemy. No bolter, no armor, only himself. An old warrior, his body failing, against the servants of chaos. Ah, but little one, a thunder warrior is a thunder warrior until the end. And so it was. When the battle ended, the enemy lay dead. But Herrick knew that his time was done. Mortally wounded, he turned to the only witness, a custodian of the Legio Golden, and asked for one thing, an honorable death. And the custodian, without hesitation, granted it. And so the last echoes of these giants fade, forgotten warriors, shadows of a past age, but never truly gone. Because as long as their stories are told, as long as their names are whispered in the dark, the thunder will never be silenced. And now tell me, little one, when you look upon the Imperium, when you see its armies march under the golden sun, will you ever wonder, what if the thunder had won? Imagine, little one, an Imperium not built upon the discipline of the Emperor's favored sons, but upon the fury of his firstborn. A humanity forged not with the rigor of the legions, but with the storm of eternal war. If the Thunder Warriors had survived, would the Imperium ever have been a realm of order? No, no, little one. It would have been an empire of conquest, of iron and blood, a war machine that never stopped. Where the Imperium, you know, has stagnated, trapped within its own lies, in this alternate universe, the true dream of the Emperor would have been realized. Humanity would have never stopped. It would have never known weakness. It would have never built bureaucrats, priests, or inquisitors, only conquerors. Would it have been a stronger empire or a more terrifying one? And the Astartes, little one? Would they have ever been born? Ah, perhaps not. Perhaps the Emperor would have never needed them. For why refine the blade when the hammer already shatters all in its path? Or maybe he would have forged a new kind of warrior, a hybrid between the two lineages. Not the Astartes as we know them, no, but creatures closer to the Thunder Warriors, stronger, more brutal, more unstable, legions of colossal giants, immortal in their fury, capable of crushing entire worlds with their bare hands. Would they have followed the Emperor, or would they have claimed the Imperium for themselves? Would they have been the protectors of humanity, or its masters? Ah, but little one, do not believe that such an Imperium would have been more just. No. A humanity led by the Thunder Warriors would have never known peace. Where the Imperium of the Astartes tried and failed to create order, the Thunder Warriors would have known only one law: war. The Great Crusade would have never ended. There would have never been a dying emperor upon his throne. The Imperium would have never become an immobile monolith. No. It would have been a cyclone, a firestorm that devoured all in its path, never burning out. The stars would have burned with the flames of conquest, and every human world would have been a living fortress, an arena of endless war. Stronger, yes, but at what price? And the warp? Ah, little one, this is the most interesting question. If the Astartes, with all their discipline and restraints, were corrupted and turned, what would have happened to the Thunder Warriors? Would they have been an impenetrable wall, giants who do not bend to temptation, too unstable to be seduced by the whispers of demons? Or perhaps their fury would have found a new master. Would we have seen chaos gods not made of lies and illusion, but of pure incarnate destruction? Would the Emperor have been worshipped? Ah, here is the greatest question of all, little one. If the Thunder Warriors had continued to reign, would there have been an Imperial cult? No, there would have been no need for gods. The Emperor would have never been entombed upon that golden throne. He would have still been at war, still marching, still the Lord of Storms. And if he had ruled as a living god, what would have happened when the war was finally won? Or what would have happened if the war had never ended? And so, little one, we close this storm-forged dream. Would an Imperium led by the Thunder Warriors have been stronger? Perhaps. Would it have been more brutal? Without a doubt. Would it have been a realm of eternal conquerors, or a beast that devoured itself? Maybe, little one, it is better that the thunder faded when it did. Or maybe, somewhere, in another universe, the roar of the storm still rages on. Oh, little one, our tale comes to an end, for now. The fire burns low, the storm still rages beyond these walls, but somewhere out there, in the grim darkness of the far future, stories do not rest. And soon, very soon, your Grandpa Grimdarius will be here once more with my dusty tomes and ancient codex in hand, waiting for you, always ready to share the next tale. Farewell, little one.